From the heart of the Space City to the heart of Gen Z, welcome to Next Gen Conversation. Not Dad's Talk Radio. Ethan talks to you about the issues and events that matter to our generation. This is the Next Gen Report with Ethan Buchanan.
Hey everybody, good evening. How are we? I hope you've had a good week. I hope you had a productive week. I think I have. I've gotten a lot of stuff done. Not quite as much as I probably should have. I'm a procrastinator. I try not to be. I can't help it. Welcome to the Next Gen Report. I am Ethan Buchanan. Real quick, a little bit of housekeeping. Go follow me on X at _Ethan Buchanan, Buchanan. If you're not following me on X, that means you're missing out on the Tuesday evening live stream. It is a lot of fun. If you just catch the show here on the radio, that's great. We love you. You may have heard, if you've listened a couple of times before, you may know this already. We got a lot of visual elements. We play a lot of videos. We look at a lot of pictures, read a lot of articles. Now, I try to pick stuff because I don't want my radio audience to feel left out. I love you guys. I try to pick stuff that sounds just as good as it looks, but there is still that visual element that you're missing out on. You just are. So go check me out on X. We upload the full radio broadcast so you can listen to the radio show. If there's something you want to see, a video that I play that you want to see rather than just hear, you can just go back and listen to it or watch it Monday morning. That's when we upload this show. It'll be up Monday morning on X or YouTube as well. So go check me out on those platforms at _Ethan Buchanan, Buchanan. All right, let's start off today. What do we want to start off with? I've got a lot of stuff to talk about today. I think we'll start with some election stuff. We had a funny thing happen here recently with one of our house races here in Texas. We've talked about this lady a couple of times, Sarah McGee. We went back and forth a couple of months ago when she was still running in her primary. This whole big Twitter exchange I had with her. We read through it just because it was so ridiculous. And let me tell you, since winning her primary, she has not gotten any less ridiculous. And this to me is the wildest political story I've ever seen. That might be a stretch, but it's pretty wild. This is definitely the wildest thing I've seen from her. We've talked about this cyclospora outbreak a couple of times on the show. Just some funny videos that we've seen from that. Poking fun at the mainstream media for freaking out about this, even though it's not really a big deal. Well, apparently Sarah McGee, who is a Democrat running for the Texas House here in the Houston area, apparently she had cyclospora. And you might ask me, well, Ethan, how do you know that? Because that's her personal medical history. It's a weird thing to know about a person. If they've got a disease that gives them severe diarrhea, that's just a weird, fun fact to have on a person. And I'd agree. I think you're right. The reason I know this is because Sarah McGee herself told everyone. And not only did she tell everyone, she tried to raise money off of it. I'm not kidding. This really happened. And I want to give a quick shout out to Carnifex Maximus. If you watch the Tuesday evening stream, you know him from there. He's always kicking it up with Brad in the comments. He's become a little bit of a celebrity because of all this. So check this out. Current Revolt first reported this, but the article I have here is from the San Antonio Current, but full credit to Current Revolt for breaking this first, or at least as far as I saw, they broke this first. Texas Democrat tries to turn about with explosive diarrhea into fundraising opportunity. Texas House candidate Sarah McGee said she ended her unconventional fundraising effort after being harassed by a, quote, certain Republican agitator. That certain Republican agitator is Carnifex Maximus. I know that guy. Sarah McGee, who's running as a Democrat for Houston area district in the Texas House, experienced explosive diarrhea from a parasitic infection, and she wants you all to know about it. Indeed, the Houston House hopeful tried to raise $5,000 just to tell you about it. Over the weekend, McGee got plenty of attention, some of it not the best kind, after she fired off a social media post letting the world know she'd succumbed to the case of the green apple quick step. Instead of sharing the details of her battle, though, she tried to turn it into a fundraiser, which racked up some crappy online reviews. The poop puns in this article are unbelievable. She said, if I raise $5,000 in the next 48 hours, I will post the story of my experience with cyclosporiasis and the men's bathroom at Whataburger. McGee, who is running to represent the Texas House District 132, wrote on a now deleted post on X, "Oh, and it's good, like Amazon review good." And of course, Carnifex Maximus, his tweet is highlighted in here. Sarah deleted this. Why would she do that? I thought she badly needed campaign dollars. McGee's fundraising effort was cut short, though. The candidate deleted the post before the 48-hour deadline after receiving harassment from a certain Republican agitator. She told conservative news blog Current Revolt. This is unbelievably ridiculous. I don't know why she thought that was a good idea. Because, listen, Sarah McGee is well aware with the kind of online X circle of conservatives that I'm proud to say includes myself, that will poke fun at all the ridiculous things she says and does. I mean, she's very familiar with it. She has to be. She had to know somewhere in the back of her mind when she posted that something unpleasant was going to come of this. Because it's a pretty tight-knit circle. She must have been aware that trying to fundraise off of having explosive diarrhea was not a good idea. And if she didn't, oh boy, what a lapse in judgment that was. I mean, I can't figure out how you make a mistake that badly. The whole point of politics is to kind of appear to be normal, appear to be likable, appear to be clean cut, so that people think, oh yeah, I can trust you, you're a regular person, you'll make good choices. You're not gross, you're not going to do anything weird or freaky while you're in office. That's kind of what people look for, or at least it used to be. I don't know how much that's still true, but that used to be part of politics. And hey, do you guys want to hear about my really bad diarrhea? Give me some money and I'll tell you. Is, I think, the polar opposite of that. I mean, at this point, if her Republican incumbent opponent can't beat her, he deserves to lose, because she is a terrible campaigner. She's a weird campaigner, and she's not particularly persuasive, or at least in my interaction with her, I haven't found her to be particularly persuasive. Listen, we got a lot more of the Next Gen Report coming up. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Next Gen Report. Again, if you're hearing me for the first time, check me out on X at _Ethan Buchanan, Buchanan. Obviously, if you're driving right now, wherever you are, Dallas, San Antonio, here in Houston, don't get on your phone right now, especially if you're in Dallas. If you're listening in Dallas, I know y'all have those crazy roads up there. Y'all got to do something about that. But for the love of God, don't get on X while you're driving on those crazy Dallas roads. But once you get where you're going, follow me on X at _Ethan Buchanan, Buchanan. And while you're at it, support the sponsor of this show, Deus Vult Lapel Pins. These are fantastic products. And listen, it's not just lapel pins. They've got neckties up here. They've got some leather goods, or at least they do when they're not sold out. I know they sell out a lot. They've also got bumper stickers. And again, their selection of lapel pins is fantastic. I wear a Deus Vult lapel pin every single day. You should as well. These are fantastic pins. And they're not that expensive. They're high quality products, but I think every pin they sell is $7 or under. So go check them out. Just dig through, see if there's one you like. They've got a bunch of different historical designs, designs relating to faith, and even, they've got some specialty designs state by state. Here in Texas, they've got like 4 or 5 different Texas-specific lapel pins that are really cool. Check them out. If you find something you like, which I guarantee you will if you go to the website, Use promo code NEXTPIN2026. That'll get you 10% off. All right. We're going to have Laura McDonald. She's with the Texas chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution here in the next segment. She's going to talk to us about some stuff going on there. They are having quite an issue. I'll just say that. I don't want to spoil you at all. But if you're interested at all in history, this will be important to you. She'll be joining us in the next segment. Before we get to that, I want to talk a little bit about elections. Election security is still top of mind. We still don't have the SAVE Act. There's no good reason for that. We have a majority in the House and Senate. The House has passed like 5 different versions of the SAVE Act, 6 times apiece. All this bill does is say, listen, when you register to vote in a federal election, you just have to show some documentation that proves you're a citizen. We can do it. It's not that hard. It's pretty easy to do. It's not that big of an inconvenience. And we've already got standards like this. The federal government has already said, look, here's the form you have to fill out to register to vote in federal elections. The federal government already mandates that the DMV in every state has to be able to register people to vote. So the idea that this is somehow an overreach is ridiculous. The idea that it's somehow a poll tax is ridiculous. You know how I know that? Texas has photo ID requirements, and we do not offer free IDs. You do have to pay a small fee. It's like $11 to get an ID. And they'll say, oh, that's a poll tax. But it's not. And I know it's not, because if it was, it would have been struck down. It's a poll tax, would have been argued in court, and the law would have been struck down. But it wasn't argued in court, at least that I know of, and I know the law wasn't struck down. So there's no reason to not do this. The only reason you could possibly think of to not do this is, oh, we'd have to get rid of the filibuster in order to do it. And then the Democrats will do whatever they want to us next time they get a majority. I hate to break it to you, buddy. They're going to do that anyway. Know this. The next time the Senate Democrats have a majority, they will destroy the filibuster and they will do whatever they want. I guarantee it. Nobody in the Senate Democrat caucus is going to stop them. Nobody. The only person that might is John Fetterman out of Pennsylvania. He might vote no on that. But there's rumors that he's going to switch parties. So who knows? And then there's this idea that it's not necessary. Well, we know it is. There's this idea that, oh, people can't register to vote if they're not citizens. We know they can. They're already doing it. In every state in the country, by the way, I guarantee you, even in red states, there's probably less of them because it is harder in red states, but it's happening in every state. It's definitely happening in the blue states. New Jersey Governor Mickey Sherrill announced that they found 6,600 people that were not U.S. citizens that had registered to vote between June 2023 and June 2024. So that's like the biggest, most consequential presidential election of my lifetime, at least, probably of yours as well. And for a year leading up to it, they had 6,000 non-citizens registering. In the same post that she put up on X this week, she said, analysis shows fewer than 400 individuals who were newly registered for the first time because of this error voted. You might think, oh, well, that's less than 400 people that are voting illegally. Well, that's 6,600 people that are registered illegally. And our preliminary analysis shows, the wording here is very careful, fewer than 400 individuals who were newly registered for the first time because of the error voted. She blamed all of this on a software error. It's just a little oopsie poopsie, some silly goofy program accidentally registered these people to vote even though they said they were not citizens. So it's all the software's fault, guys. We didn't do anything wrong. I don't believe you. I just don't believe you. First of all, I think there were probably more than that 400 who voted. But even then, if this was happening between 2023 and 2024, it was probably happening before that too, right? That makes sense. So they might not be newly registered and they voted, and then they wouldn't be counted in this analysis. I guarantee you there is well over 400 foreigners that voted in New Jersey. And even if there isn't, I would posit to you If you're sitting there going, oh, well, it's less than 400 people, it's really not that big of a deal. First of all, that's a margin of victory in a local election. And if they're voting in federal elections, they're probably voting in local elections. Because why wouldn't you? You're not just going to hit a vote for president and then just call it a day. You're going to go all the way down the ballot and you're going to fill it out. It's just what you do. So in those local elections, that 400 people can make a difference. And even if they didn't have any effect on the election at all, the correct number of foreign nationals voting in any election anywhere in the United States is 0. The left keeps pushing this idea that we shouldn't be worried about this because it's not that big of a deal. There's not that many of them. It's not going to matter that much. Except it does matter, because if you let it slide on 400, then you let it slide on 5, and then you let it slide on 1,000, and that slippery slope doesn't stop. Next thing you know, you've got millions of foreign nationals registered and voting, because why not? It's not that big of a deal. What's the limiting principle on that? When does it become a big deal? What is the number? What is the number of acceptable foreign interference in our elections? Because that's what it is. Let's not dance around this. These aren't just people that are making a mistake. They didn't know it was wrong. They got registered. They thought it was okay. Maybe they did. Maybe they didn't know they were breaking our laws. But ignorance of the law is not a defense for breaking the law. And we need to take this seriously because, like I pointed out, it is foreign interference. These are foreigners. These are not Americans. They might even be here legally, but they're not Americans. You can get a green card. You're still not an American. You're here legally. You're not an American. Still can't vote. These are foreigners that are interfering with our elections. That's not good. We can accept precisely 0 of that. It just cannot be allowed. Okay? That shouldn't be complicated. That shouldn't be controversial. But the left will look at you like you're crazy for pointing out that this is a problem. It might not be the biggest problem in the world right now, but it is a problem. And we cannot make excuses for it. And again, I would challenge you, the listener, in your daily life. The next time you hear someone say, oh, it's not happening, show them this. Show them the Democrat governor of New Jersey admitting it's happening. And when they say, well, oh, only 400 of them voted, ask them, what in your mind is the correct number of foreign nationals voting in American elections? Because for me, like I said, it's 0. All right, Laura McDonald coming up. We'll be right back. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. If you've been listening to the show for a while, you know that I am big into history. I do historical reenactments. I've been a member of a number of different historical organizations. So history, American history, is important to me. And I have a deep passion for 2 things, and that's historical organizations and reality. I am a realist. And the reason that's relevant now is because we are once again dealing with the issue of, a man is a man and a woman is a woman. That is an objective scientific truth. It cannot be changed. But something that continues to happen is this gender ideology movement will try to creep back and attach itself to other movements and try to legitimize itself. We see this time and time again. And now this is cropping up in a historical group that I am a big personal fan of, and that's the Daughters of the American Revolution. My grandmother was a member of this group. I believe my aunt and mother were at one time. I don't know if they actually knew they were, but I'm almost positive my grandmother signed them up for it. So this group kind of has some importance to me. And when the Daughters of the American Revolution just becomes whoever of the American Revolution, okay, well, what are we doing? If you're a man and you want to get involved in this, there's the Sons of the American Revolution. I have a lot of good friends that are involved in that. But now them.com, which is a big LGBT publication is celebrating the fact that the Daughters of the American Revolution live up to their name by rejecting ban on trans women. That's like the exact opposite of living up to their name. I've brought somebody in who can talk a little bit about this with me. That is Laura McDonald. She is here representing herself and I believe a separate organization. She is not here on behalf of the Daughters of the American Revolution, but she, like me, is concerned about this. So I guess let's start with what exactly happened here, Laura. Is this a new policy? Is this an old policy? There seems to be some confusion there. What's going on?
Thank you for having me, Ethan. And like you said, I'm just a member of the DAR here expressing my First Amendment rights. And we came to this knowledge about 2 or 3 years ago that the DAR had been quietly admitting these individuals who have an amended birth certificate, which is a departure from what has always been the norm. In my understanding, documents submitted have to be original documents. So, for example, if a woman's been adopted, she cannot submit her newly state-issued certified birth certificate to become a member of the DAR. She has to prove her own bloodline lineage. So what happened a couple of weeks ago, now about a month ago, I should say, at Continental Congress is after many years of trying to have our voice heard through a bylaw amendment that was continuously rejected by the board, we were able to, goodness, Ethan, I'm going to try to, if I went into all the details right now, your audience would be rightly confused. So essentially, the long and short of it is we voted on a resolution at last month's Continental Congress that would have shored up our bylaws, would have said, this is how the Daughters of the American Revolution interprets the word woman. Was not meant to be anything anti-exclusionary. It was meant to simply say, as Daughters of the American Revolution, this is what our bylaws say. This is what they've said since our founding in 1890, that you must be a woman, and this is how we define the word woman. And through several different things that happened there in that meeting, the resolution was not adopted, it was defeated. But we are still looking for a special meeting that we have called as chapters of the Daughters of the American Revolution to have this vote essentially again, which there's nothing that precludes us from having it again. But again, we can get into the weeds and the nuance of all the Roberts rules and parliamentary procedure if you want to, but essentially that's where we're at right now.
Now, what do you think is driving the opposition to this? Because it seems like fairly common sense to me. You're the Daughters of the American Revolution. Everybody knows what a daughter is. Everyone knows what a woman is. It seems like something that should be just fairly common sense. And I know just from involvement with historical organizations that most members tend to lean fairly conservative. They're not all Republican, so to speak, but most people that I know who are concerned with history are fairly conservative. And almost all of them have, enough common sense to fill at least a small cup of water. So I guess I'm confused as to why this is controversial. Why saying a man is a man and a woman is a woman and this is an organization for women, why is that getting pushback?
It is because there are a few women at the top, and I say few, relatively few when you talk about how vast the DAR is itself. It's made up of roughly 190,000 members. So when you factor in that the women who are at the top, it's about 80 to 90 women, they're the ones who have taken this ideological position. And even amongst those 90, I don't even think most of them are ideological. I think it's a few, and the President General herself gloms onto this notion that trans women are women. She's part of a public Facebook page called Daughters for Inclusivity that was created to counter what we're doing as Daughters advocating for restoration. They make the claim that trans women are women. So there are definitely people, women, who are in leadership positions who believe in this notion. And instead of just trying to convince us on the merits that trans women are women, or that, hey, maybe these individuals should be members of the DAR, they go about it in these ways of trying to convince the membership that we would be breaking the law if we tell these individuals that they cannot be members of the DAR. And again, that goes into this whole, why this has turned into such a quagmire. This is what we've been saying, is the DAR is in a governance crisis, because First of all, they're amending our bylaws through interpretation. What they did not say, hey, DAR, let's amend our bylaws and allow for these individuals to become members. Instead, what they're doing is that phrase gaslighting. They're gaslighting the members and saying, nothing's changed with our procedure. Only women are members of the DAR. But yes, we let in trans women who are men, but there are no men in the DAR. So it's this circular, confusing, gaslighting scenario that members are confused by, and then you add on to that they're being told that it's also illegal to do it. So it's just, we are having to unravel all of that and educate members about what's happened and what their rights are, whether it's parliamentary procedure or their First Amendment rights, essentially.
Now, I want to kind of ask you, there almost seems to be an element of erasure here, because I mean there is a Sons of the American Revolution group. It's very active. The chapters are out there. I know a lot of good folks in it. It's not hard to come by. So if you're a man and you want to join this group, go join the group that's for you. And they do a lot of really cool stuff. They play with guns all the time. It's awesome. It seems like this has been locked on and focused on the women's group, which now in effect, as I understand it, is just the other group now. So there was a group for men who were proud of their American heritage and a group for women who were proud of their American heritage. And I know those groups worked together and did a lot of stuff together, and that's fantastic. And now they've taken the women's group and they've almost devalued what it is to be a daughter of the American Revolution, because now that doesn't mean anything. You're just in this other group with all the trans people now.
Absolutely. And by the way, if your mother and or grandmother was a member of the DAR, you can be a son of the American Revolution. I mean, your apples sail right on through. I think I say that, but that's the way I understand it.
Yeah.
But yes, you don't see this happening with the sons as much. And I have been told that there are some women who have sneaked their way into the SAR. And, that's going to happen. You're going to have people who either dishonestly or maybe in good faith apply to an association like the DA or the SAR who maybe don't meet the membership eligibility requirements, but they get through anyway. And I have been told that there are some women in the SAR who, again, sneaked their way in. That's different than the SAR saying we embrace this notion that women with amended birth certificates are actually men, which that's what the DAR says. They tell us that if a man presents a birth certificate that says female, that he is a woman. But to your point, it's always the women's institutions that are under attack when it comes to this. And if you do have women that have sneaked their way into the SAR, they're not out there promoting it and making a big deal out of it. It's not about the attention like it is for these men who seek to join institutions like the DAR. And a good example of that is, we're not here to single out anybody. We're not here to mistreat anybody. But the truth is, we probably would not know that there were these men who were members of the DAR if they had not told us, meaning they blasted on social media, they talked to the press, they said, here I am, I'm a trans woman, which translates into I'm a man who now claims to be a woman, and now I'm a member of the DAR. So we wouldn't even know about it if they had not shouted it from the rooftops.
All right, we got about 15 seconds left. I want to ask you real quick, if people want to get involved in this, they want to help y'all push back against this and restore, frankly, common sense, how can they get involved?
We've got, if you just Google us, Daughters Advocating for Restoration, we've got Facebook, X account, a website, and a Give, Send, Go, and we really appreciate the opportunity to come on and tell our story. We need to save our historic institutions from this woke ideology. I'm just going to be plain about it.
Fantastic. Well, hey, thank you very much for taking the time. I couldn't agree more. Listen, these institutions are important. You might not be a history nerd. This stuff matters. Our history matters. Reality matters. We have to defend it. Thank you very much, Laura, for joining me. Alrighty. I want to be clear. These things we're talking about, these are culture war issues. And there are some that will tell you culture war battles aren't important. They will tell you we need to be entirely focused on, any other number of things. Just ignore the culture war. It doesn't matter. I think that's completely wrong. Culture war issues matter because politics is downstream from culture. Whatever the culture kind of believes or supports, that becomes daily life. It does. It becomes political life. I'll give you an example of this. Thankfully, we're winning on the transgender issue. That is a culture war battle that we are winning strongly. There are little defeats along the way, but that particular issue, I think the culture is kind of pushing the other way, which is good. There is a culture war issue that has been completely lost by, I guess, conservatives, constitutionalists, people who believe in free speech, and that is the issue of racism. And that's where the culture war starts to get a little bit more complicated, because obviously you shouldn't be racist, right? Obviously. The question is, should that be criminalized? And that's a difficult question to answer. If you believe in the Constitution, in constitutional freedoms, things like freedom of association, things like freedom of speech, that is a difficult question to answer. It is. Because obviously, you shouldn't be racist. But I think you should be free to be racist. Now, that is not an endorsement of racism. That is an endorsement of the First Amendment, freedom of speech. That is an endorsement of freedom of association. I think you have a right to say, I want to spend time with these people. I don't want to spend time with these people. I think you have a right to say words that some people would say naughty. Should you do it? No. Should you choose to exercise better judgment? Probably, in most cases. But should you go to jail, or should you have to pay a fine for something like saying the N-word? Now, the left will tell you, yes, absolutely, that's racist. You should be fined for racism. And a constitutionalist would tell you, well, no, you have the First Amendment right to say that. You shouldn't, but you have a right to do it. The First Amendment doesn't exist to protect the things that we think are nice. And that's why I think conservatives and constitutionalists have lost on this issue, is because, we don't want to be racist. We don't want to be mean. We think everybody should be nice, and everybody should. You should endeavor to be nice to the people around you. So when somebody says the N-word, oh, that's bad. You don't want to go out and defend them. You don't want to go out and defend their right to say the N-word. But then you end up in situations where we've got the Shiloh Hendricks case in Minnesota, where you have someone being convicted for saying the N-word, criminally, for saying the N-word, which is a blatant violation of the First Amendment. And if she doesn't have the First Amendment, you don't either. The only issue becomes, where are we drawing the cultural line between this is free speech and this is not? Free speech has got to be absolute, or it doesn't exist. Because now you could say, oh, well, saying I support Donald Trump, that's just as racist as saying the N-word, because Donald Trump is a racist. Donald Trump is a vile, evil racist. So if you support Donald Trump, you must support the N-word. And we've already determined that the N-word is criminal. Literally, that's what happened in the Shiloh Hendricks case. We're going to dig into it. Here it is, ktsp.com. This is ABC. I believe this is a Minneapolis affiliate. A jury has reached a verdict in the trial of a Minnesota woman who allegedly directed racial slurs at an 8-year-old girl with autism. Now, I have heard that it was an 8-year-old boy with autism that was also on an ankle monitor. Shiloh Hendricks was found not guilty on the first count of misdemeanor disorderly conduct. Hendricks was found guilty on the second count for the interaction with the videographer. Her attorney said he will appeal that. So, I'm not going to play you the video because it's full of profanity, and if I play it, I'm just going to have to beep the whole thing. You won't even hear it. But essentially what happened was, she was accused of, after some kid started rifling through her bag and stealing stuff from her kid, she called that child the N-word. That's the allegation. And then a videographer, just a bystander who pulled out a camera, heard her do that and confronted her. Now, what gets weird in this case is, as I understand it, this videographer is a Somali immigrant who either was charged with, I know he was charged with, I believe he was even convicted with some indecent acts with a minor. So the fact that he was even at this playground where there was a bunch of kids raises some serious questions. That hasn't been talked about at all. That's been completely ignored. The big story here is, oh, she said the N-word. One of those things is worse. All right? One of those things is worse. A sex offender hanging around a bunch of kids is worse than someone saying the N-word. Okay? Let's just iron that out. You shouldn't say the N-word, but the sex offender thing is worse. Now, he pulled out his camera and he started going, did you say the N-word to that child? Did you say the N-word to him? Why wouldn't you say it now? Say the N-word to me. Say the N-word to me. You said it to the child. So he starts goading her into saying the N-word. And then she does. She calls him the N-word. Again, she shouldn't have done it, but she does have the freedom to do it. That's what the First Amendment is. And again, if she doesn't have the First Amendment, you don't either. That's why this is important. Not advocating for calling people the N-word. I'm advocating for the First Amendment. So anyway, she gets charged with 2 counts of disorderly conduct. That's a misdemeanor charge. It is a criminal charge. One of those counts is for calling the child the N-word. Another one of those counts is for calling the cameraman the N-word. And again, he told her to do it. He goaded her into it. He held a camera to her face and said, say the N-word to me. He literally said those exact words. And so she did. Now, the real kicker here is she actually was not convicted on the first count. That had to do with the child. The first count of misdemeanor disorderly conduct was for allegedly calling the child the N-word. The second count of disorderly conduct was for calling the cameraman the N-word. So supposedly this incident started over her calling a child the N-word, which again, you shouldn't do, but she was acquitted on that charge. So what was the cameraman doing? Why was he at that park? That hasn't been looked into at all. And did he just make all of this up so that he could be a race victim and fundraise off of it, I guess? We know he did have a GoFundMe for a while. Anyway, she got convicted of, I think she has to pay a $1,000 fine, 200 hours of community service, supervised probation. She got a 90-day suspended jail sentence, all for saying a word. For saying a word. And again, I don't think it's a good word. I don't think you should say it, but you should be allowed to say it. Because if you're not allowed to say that word, where do you draw the line? If it is criminal to say the N-word, how long does it take before it's criminal to say something like, I support Donald Trump, or I'm a Republican, or what have you? There's no limiting principle. The only limiting principle is what hurts someone's feelings. Because really, that's the issue with the N-word. It hurts the feelings of black people. That's why we don't say it. That's why. That's the whole reason. It's hurt people's feelings. So if that's your standard for what speech is criminal, literally any speech can be criminal. You can say, hey, a man isn't a woman. And a woman and a man are 2 different things. You can't switch. You can't flip-flop back and forth. You're just one. You're born one, and that's the one you are. And all the transgenders say, that hurts my feelings. That's like the N-word to me. When you say I'm a man and I identify as a woman, or vice versa. Where's the limiting principle? There isn't one. This is a problem. This is a culture war battle we have to fight. The First Amendment must be absolute. Now, again, you have liberty and you need to use some personal judgment as to how you use that liberty. Don't be irresponsible with your liberty. However, you do have that liberty. And I don't know what else to say about this. We cannot make exceptions here. We cannot make exceptions because, oh, it's just mean. You have to be willing to say, hey, you are free to be racist. You shouldn't be. It's not good. It's not a Christ-like thing to do, but you do have that freedom. Thank you very much for listening to the Next Gen Report. I'm Ethan Buchanan. We will be back Tuesday evening on X @_Ethan Buchanan.